The earliest Christmas I can remember is the one where I realized other children were wanted. I was 6. My classmates wore red sweaters and jingling bracelets, their parents crowding the little wooden chairs in our school auditorium. Every time a child stepped onto the stage to sing, the room flooded with camera flashes and cheers. Laughter bounced against the walls like warm light. But when my class lined up for our song, I kept scanning the crowd, searching for the familiar shape of my father's coat or my mother's sharp red lipstick. I told myself they were just running late. Adults got busy, everyone said that. So I held my paper star tightly and waited. We finished the first song, then the second, still no parents. By the end of the night, the auditorium emptied. Families clustered together, bundling their children into coats, kissing their foreheads, telling them how beautifully they sang. I stood near the stage, my star drooping in my hand, and watched as the last pair of parents walked out. The door closed with a soft click, and the world felt instantly larger, colder. I sat on the wooden step and waited. I told myself not to cry because crying never changed anything, something I had already learned far too young. It wasn't surprising when the janitor found me, alone in the dim glow of the stage lights, his face folded with the kind of pity I hated. "Did your parents forget the time?" he asked gently. I nodded because that was easier than admitting what I suspected. They forgot me. The following Christmas, when I was 7, they left me at my Aunt Helena's cabin. She cooked for me, wrapped me in thick sweaters, and tried to reassure me that my parents would return soon. They didn't come until the 27th. They laughed it off, said they thought I wanted to stay longer. My mother ruffled my hair like I was some stray pet who should be grateful to be noticed at all. Each year followed the same pattern like a cruel holiday tradition. At 10, they left for a skiing trip without realizing I wasn't in the car until they arrived 3 hours away. The neighbor found me sitting on the porch steps wearing my coat and boots, luggage beside me. He invited me inside and fed me dinner while I silently stared at the snow. At 12, I woke to an empty house on Christmas morning. No rustling downstairs, no smell of pancakes, no Merry Christmas, echoing through the hallway. Just a note on the fridge, "We left early. There are leftovers. Don't make a mess." That was the first year I didn't bother placing my stocking out. I knew there would be nothing inside. By 14, I no longer waited for them at all. I used to watch families pose for holiday cards, the parents pulling their children close, arms wrapped around them like they were priceless. I watched from a distance, wishing for someone who would reach for me like that. Instead, I learned to disappear on my own. Better to expect nothing than to keep losing the same hope over and over. But quiet neglect shapes a person more deeply than loud cruelty. It carves hollows inside that you spend years trying to fill. I grew up with those empty spaces, trying to pretend I wasn't always bracing for the moment I'd be forgotten again. And every Christmas it came, without fail. Forgotten had become my holiday tradition. I just didn't know yet that one day I would break it. Adulthood didn't rescue me from the quiet ache of my childhood, but it did give me something else: distance. Enough distance to see my parents not as mysterious gods whose approval I needed, but as flawed people who had never learned how to love deeply, or maybe had never cared to try. The day I moved out at 19, neither of them noticed the silence left behind. That was the last lesson I needed. I buried myself in work. While other students were finding themselves or falling in love or backpacking through continents, I was learning how to build a future that didn't rely on anyone else's presence. I took extra shifts. I grabbed every project. I became indispensable because structure never forgot me the way people did. Money began to fill the spaces where affection should have been. Promotions came faster than I expected. By 25, I was earning more than both my parents combined. By 28, I could finally see the shape of a life that belonged only to me, quiet, controlled, and free of disappointment. But money doesn't silence old ghosts, especially not the kind that clang their chains every December. The first winter after a major promotion, I told myself I wouldn't care about Christmas. I worked through it. I ordered takeout and sat in a clean apartment under lights I pretended weren't festive. And yet, at midnight on Christmas Eve, I caught myself looking at the door even though I knew no one would knock. Something inside me cracked, not loudly, quietly, like a thin sheet of ice breaking under a single footstep. That was the moment I decided I wouldn't keep living in echoes of a childhood where I never belonged. If no one had made me a home, then I would make one myself, and I would make it beautiful. It took me months of searching. I wanted something far away from the places haunted by memories of empty Christmas mornings. Something that felt like a world of its own, untouched, waiting, unclaimed. When I found the manor, I knew instantly. It stood on a snow-covered hill surrounded by whispering pine trees. Frost coated its stone walls like lace. The windows glowed faintly in the winter twilight, as if the house itself sighed when someone finally looked at it with intention. The drive leading up the hill curved like an invitation. Inside, the ceilings were high and crowned with carved wooden beams. Fireplaces filled every other room. There was an old iron chandelier in the foyer that looked like it had listened to 100 forgotten stories. The windows were tall and stretched up like they were yearning for the sky. It felt abandoned, yet hopeful. It felt like me. I bought it without hesitation. When I signed the last paper, the realtor smiled politely, but she didn't know what that moment meant. All those years of being left behind, reduced to a single pen stroke that affirmed one truth: I could build something none of them could take away. On December 23rd, I carried my boxes inside alone. But this time, loneliness didn't sting. It felt like ownership, like reclaiming the narrative that had always been stuck on the wrong page. I decorated every hallway myself, humming songs I once associated with disappointment. I baked cookies that filled the kitchen with cinnamon warmth. I lit fireplaces until the house glowed with the kind of comfort I had only witnessed through other families' windows. For the first time in my life, Christmas wasn't something happening to me. It was something I was creating. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have imagined, was that loving myself loudly enough to claim this place would draw the very people who never cared before. And they wouldn't come with warmth, they'd come with a locksmith. I woke on Christmas morning wrapped in a cocoon of warmth and quiet, a feeling so unfamiliar it almost startled me. The pine forest outside my window shimmered beneath a layer of fresh snow, the sky a soft silver, blue. For the first time in my life, the holiday felt peaceful, mine. I brewed coffee, humming under my breath as I moved through the kitchen in thick socks. The manor felt alive, like it welcomed me, like the creaks in the floors were simply old bones settling contentedly now that someone cared again. I planned a simple day, cinnamon rolls, music, a book, maybe exploring the attic later. Then the doorbell rang. It cut through the quiet like a blade. I frowned. I didn't know anyone in the area, and I certainly hadn't invited anyone. The delivery services I used were closed for the holiday, so I wiped my hands on a towel and walked to the foyer, half expecting some lost traveler. What I found instead froze me in place. My parents stood at the door, coats dusted with snow, faces flushed from the cold, and behind them, holding a toolbox and wearing an expression of deep discomfort, stood a locksmith. My mother didn't greet me, didn't even smile. She just pushed past the wreath I had carefully hung and said, irritated, finally, "We've been out here 20 minutes. The old version of me, the one conditioned to shrink, to apologize, almost surfaced, but the warmth of the manor behind me grounded me like an anchor. "You weren't expected," I said, voice steady. My father brushed past my words with a wave of his gloved hand. "We decided we'd spend Christmas here. Family holiday. You should have given us a key." I stared at them, stunned. "A key? You didn't even know this place existed until now." My mother's eyes swept the interior like she was inventorying my belongings. "We heard through your cousin that you bought a house, a big one. You should have told us. We're family. We have a right to be here. A right." That word rang in my ears like a cruel joke. I stepped onto the porch, blocking the locksmith's path. He looked relieved not to be shoved inside. "Why is there a locksmith?" I asked them. My mother sighed dramatically, as if I were the unreasonable one. "Because you didn't answer the door. We thought something might have happened, and we needed access." My father added, "You can't just lock family out of their own home. Their own home." The audacity would have been funny if it hadn't been so warped. "This isn't your home," I said. "It's mine. My father scoffed. Everything a child owns belongs to the parents. That's called family responsibility. No, I said softly. That's called entitlement. My mother took a step toward me. Don't make this difficult. Let the man do his job. The locksmith raised both hands. I'm not breaking in, unless I'm sure this isn't trespassing. I don't want trouble. My father turned to him sharply. We raised this child, you forgot me, I said. The words fell into the snow, covered air with the weight of truth. My parents froze. The locksmith looked between us, eyebrows lifting slightly. I continued, my voice no longer soft, steady, controlled, grown. You forgot me, at concerts, at cabins, at home, on Christmas after Christmas after Christmas. My mother bristled. We were busy. You weren't too busy to find a locksmith on Christmas morning. I replied, silence. Cold and biting. The locksmith exhaled and took a step back. Look, I'm not breaking into a home someone else clearly owns. If the deed is in their name, I can't help you. My father's face burned red. My mother's mouth tightened with outrage, but I felt none of the old panic. No shrinking, no fear, because for the first time, I wasn't the child they always forgot. I was the adult who finally remembered myself. And I wasn't opening the door for them. Not this time, not ever again. My father's voice rose first, sharp enough to cut through the icy quiet of the porch. This is ridiculous, he snapped. We drove 2 hours in the snow, and you're standing here arguing. Let us inside. Once upon a time, that tone would have sent me shrinking backward, apologizing even when I hadn't done anything wrong. But the manor behind me felt like armor. Stone walls and steady warmth holding me upright. I'm not arguing, I said calmly. I'm setting a boundary. My mother scoffed, her breath forming a white cloud of disapproval. Boundaries, you've always been dramatic. Always making things harder than they need to be. I looked at her carefully. Once, I would have searched her face for softness, a hint of love, a sign she didn't truly mean the coldness she wrapped around me. But now all I saw was a woman who had never understood what she took from me. I pulled a slim folder from the basket near the door, where I had placed the important documents the day I moved in. I held it out to the locksmith. Here, I said, this is the deed, my signature, my name, no joint ownership, no shared claim. The locksmith accepted it with visible relief. He opened it, scanning quickly, then nodding. Yeah, this is very clear. Legally, this is their house. I can't break in. I'd lose my license. My mother lunged forward, as if she could grab the folder from him. But we're the parents. That should count for something. It doesn't in real estate law. He murmured carefully, taking a step away. My father glared at me, jaw tight. After everything we did for you, this is how you repay us. We fed you, clothed you. You forgot me. I said again, not raising my voice, not needing to. He flinched, as if the quiet truth struck harder than shouting ever could. You're exaggerating. My mother insisted. We never forgot you. Yes, you did. My voice stayed steady, but emotion threaded through it like gold through glass. At concerts, at holidays, at home, you forgot me every time something more interesting came along. You forgot me every Christmas, even when I was in the same house. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. We didn't have time to coddle you. I didn't need coddling, I said. I needed parents. Silence thickened around us. Snowflakes drifted lazily downward, landing on their coats and on the toolbox the locksmith now held awkwardly, as though it might explode at any second. We just wanted to spend the holiday with you, my mother finally muttered. No, I replied gently. You wanted to spend the holiday in my manor, with my things, benefiting from the stability I built out of the childhood you neglected. Their eyes flickered anger, then realization, then the unmistakable sting of being caught without a defense. The locksmith cleared his throat. Look, I'm going to head out. This doesn't look like something I should be involved in. He trudged down the snowy steps, leaving the three of us in the stillness. My father looked at me one last time, rage and disbelief warring in his gaze. You're making a mistake. Maybe, I said softly. But at least it's mine to make. I stepped back into the foyer. My parents opened their mouths, anger, apology. I'll never know. Because I closed the door before their words could spill out, the latch clicked with a soft, decisive sound. On the other side, I heard muffled voices, crunching footsteps, the car door slamming, then nothing. Inside, the manor glowed with warm light, the fire crackled, cinnamon scented the air. I leaned against the door, breathing in the peace. For the first time in my life, I chose myself boldly, unapologetically. The sweetest revenge wasn't cruelty. It was this, the life I built, the peace I protected, and the door they no longer had the right to open.